Hello, my name is Lori Smith, and I'll be presenting to you today for SAS Global Forum 2021. I've been working with SAS for 16 years, 9 of which have been with the Division of Biostatistics and Epidemiology at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center as a SAS programmer. I want to just take you through my personal journey in learning how to access data via an API. So, in the process of me learning how to access data from a database with an API, I also discovered that there are data made available to the public from lots of different sources. It seems that connecting to data using an API is eliminating the need to use SAS to programmatically search HTML code from a site to strip data that may be needed or to download large data sets. So while learning how to program accessing data through an API, I came across this Forbes article from February 2016 that provided me a listing of free data available to the public, most of which on this particular list is available using an API or through an API. So some of the data that was listed on the list are census data from the United States, social media data, Twitter, Facebook, Google data. There's also a very comprehensive site called healthdata.gov that provides lots of different health-related data sets that can be used in analysis. So today my focus will be just to go through an example of accessing census data and accessing healthdata.gov or data from healthdata.gov. So let's take a look at the United States Census data. In order to access data from the United States Census, you're required to have an API key. And it's really easy to request. So this is the simple site. Go in, give a description of your organization, email address, and they send you an API key in your email that you can use to access any of the data sets they have available. There's a complete list of all the available data sets here. Give you full descriptions and also provides you a variable list. So you have a data dictionary that goes along with the data that you would be receiving, you'd be accessing using this API. So I selected a random data set. This is looking at population estimates by age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin from 2019. The variable lists provided all of these variables that are available when accessing this particular data set. So creating the code to be able to access this requires the definition of this URL. So we're accessing this API. This is the base site, and we also are defining the variables that we will be accessing: population, age, and there are a number of others: sex, race, ethnicity, and I'm also providing my key for accessing the data. So running the code from the previous slide, here is the code, exactly as you saw on the slide. Now running this data will provide us access to the data set that was listed and all of the variables that were requested in the URL. If you notice, there are two data sets being created. One is called root, and as you can see, this is the data set that our desired data set, the data that we requested. And there are 132,000 records in here, and it ran pretty quickly. And there is an all data set that's being provided, and it's just a long version of the data from the root data set. So if you take a look at this data set, the variable name is being provided in the first row of the data, and there are some general descriptions for the variables. So this data set will need to be manipulated in order to create a more useful data set. So I added some code that will take that previous data set and put it in a data set that we would prefer to use, where we have the variable names as they appear in that top row, and we've reformatted those variables that we expect to be numeric, population and age. And the other variables, the other coded variables could also be transformed, but for this presentation and this demonstration, I'm just transforming population and age here. So that's what this additional programming will do. Now I'll show you running this program, running this part of the program on that data. Actually doesn't take very long either. So if I'm taking this data to transform it again, I'm going to run this data set. This being our resulting data set. As you can see now, the variables are named correctly, and I've changed the format of these two variables. So another source of data is healthdata.gov, and so to access data through healthdata.gov, it does not require you to have an access key or API access key. Let's take a look at the listing. As you can see, this is a more comprehensive site. It is searchable by keyword. There are ways that it can be sorted by date or title, ascending or descending. There are other ways to filter through the data, types of data, locations, and you can also filter through by format. You can filter through by different tags. You can filter through by publisher. So if you know that it's CDC data, or you know that it's the state of Maryland or the state of Hawaii, you can filter through that way also. So it's a more comprehensive list than the data for the census data. So again, I just randomly selected a data set to access, and this particular data set is entitled Deaths Involving Coronavirus Disease 2019 by Race and Hispanic Origin group and age by state. And here is the outline of the variables to expect to be able to access. So similar to accessing the data from the census site, we are defining a URL with the API location, and again, so we run this, we're going to import the data set that we're specifying, and it's also going to it's going to copy those data sets from their location to the work directory in order for us to be able to use them. And again, there's all data set created, and again, it's a long version of the data that's in the root, which is the data set that we are desiring. We have all the variables that were defined in the data dictionary available to us, and as you can see, this data set is a little bit different than the census, where the variable names are already defined correctly. So very little manipulation is needed in order to use this data. Again, the only kind of manipulation that may be needed is changing these character numeric values into numeric values. And as you notice, this data set is much smaller than the previous one. It's only 1,000 records as opposed to 132,000 records. So it's a fairly easy process to be able to access this data, and I imagine that it is and I've discovered that is the same when accessing data from other types of sites, like Google sites or the social media sites. But in conclusion, there are many sources of big public data that can be accessed using base SAS with an API requiring very little manipulation for use and analysis. Thank you for coming to my talk. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact me, Lori Smith, at this email address, and I can address those. Thank you.